22. We have a really great, diverse group of people today presenting, and we're going to try. We may not go in order of the agenda, so be just because our first presenter is not here. Maybe what I can do is I can start with the second presentation from Elizabeth Hale at Yosemite National Park, and her presentation. Her presentation is on YouTube. I'm gonna try to make. I actually should have tested this out to make sure the share screen audio works. Is there anything I have to do special, Carlos, to make sure the audio works?
When you actually share the screen, there should be a checkbox that says include audio.
Okay.
There's
All right,
also one to optimize for the video too.
Okay. Well, let's if I can't get to work, I may have to kick this can to you guys. Okay, so it's Google Chrome. Sharing that screen. And I can see the application. And I'm going to play. So if you guys can't hear anything, then
We'll let you know.
Can you hear anything?
Not yet.
Okay. I wasn't ready for share computer sound, optimize screen share for video clip. I found it. Okay. It's only been 2.5 years on Zoom. It's probably gonna take me 10 years to figure it out. Okay, thank you for your patience. You can read the closed captions. Okay, thank you. All right. Let's get this going.
Happy GIS Day. I'm Elizabeth Hale, GIS Coordinator at Yosemite National Park. Let's talk about GIS internships in the National Park Service. There are some great opportunities out there if you know where to look. So I'm going to give you a quick tour from 2 key websites that list short-term internships and federal positions that are open to current students and recent graduates. Let's take a look at this first one. This is a web page on nps.gov, the official website of the National Park Service. And this web page lists all of the national internship programs used in the National Park Service. I'm going to focus on three programs where you can look to find some great opportunities. The first one is this National Park Service GIS internship program. This is a great program that offers GIS-focused internships twice a year. So there's a period you can apply for spring and summer internships and fall and winter internships. You do have to apply several months in advance. And these are listed through a partner, the Southern Utah University Intergovernmental Internship Cooperative, which is linked here. So if you follow that link, you can go to their page and you can review the positions that are available. Look for the next set of positions to be available around March. That will be for the spring-summer positions. Another internship program I want to highlight is Scientists in Parks. This is a natural resource-focused internship program. So this focuses on disciplines like physical sciences, biology, science communication and education, and social sciences. But this program lists a lot of opportunities that include GIS professional experience or even GIS-focused internships. Like the previous program, this one has 2 seasons. There's a summer season, which starts around May or June, and you have to apply well in advance for those summer positions. Those will open in December for applications right around the corner. And then a winter season, and again, well in advance, you'll be applying around May and June for winter season positions. But these are great opportunities. And let's look at a third one, the National Council for Preservation Education. The acronym here is NCPE, or we call it NCPE. And NCPE internships are focused on cultural resources. So like listed here, public history, archaeology, architecture, planning, etc. And there are also internships offered here that have a GIS focus. Unlike the other programs, these intern opportunities are listed year-round, And so, like those others, you can follow the link to their webpage to view the current opportunities. The second website I want to highlight is usajobs.gov. This is the web portal for all positions in the federal government. And if you scroll down on the home page, there's a section here for students and recent graduates. There are positions and internships listed on usajobs.gov that are targeted to current students, and those might be listed as student trainee positions or recent graduates, which means you have gotten your degree within the last 2 years, or if you're a veteran, within the last 6 years. Looks like the web page is having a little trouble loading. Let me try reloading that. That looks better. So this lists the information about pathways, which offer these positions targeted to students and recent graduates. And then down here, you can even begin your search right away. So search for recent graduate positions, and you'll start to see things come up. They'll say pathways, recent graduate, or the student ones will say student trainee. You can filter these down by department and agency. So for example, Department of the Interior is where the National Park Service is situated, and you can keep an eye here for great opportunities to apply for that you'll qualify for. You can also set up a saved search in USA Jobs. All right, so back to our slides. So the key takeaway here is applications for federal positions and these short-term internships are due months before the position start date. So make sure you're staying ahead of those timelines. And then there are some common eligibility requirements. Because these are federal positions, they have a USA citizenship requirement, although there's an exception with the International Volunteers in Parks program. Or you must be maybe a current student or recent graduate, or some of these programs are targeted for youth, which is defined as up to age 30 or age 35 for vets. So I hope you enjoy learning about these opportunities and have a good time applying.
Okay, great. The program is actually really successful. So if anyone has any questions, how to navigate to that, I know Elizabeth could see if we can include her email. I think it's in the agenda, but I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to Elizabeth directly. The application for federal jobs is always challenging, but just with the right guidance and help, it makes a big difference. And Elizabeth is a great mentor. So I think we're going to move on, and we can hopefully have room for Q&A at the end if anyone has any. Yes, thank you for that email, Carlos. I think Brock Riggs is going to be our next presenter. And so we can give you a little bit of time to set up if I can find
Does that
you.
look okay?
That looks good.
All right.
We see your presenter view at this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So thank you all for having me. Quick introduction. My name is Brock Riggs. I am currently working as a junior specialist at UC Davis under Dr. Maurice Patisky. And we are also part of the University of California Cooperative Extension. So that is one of the bigger reasons why we are trying to monitor this, because a lot of backyard producers and a lot of commercial producers, Dr. Patisky often consults with them, and this is nationwide. So a very quick background on HPAI. It's a viral disease that is deadly in commercial poultry, often extremely deadly. In fact, when HPAI gets into even one bird in a commercial house, whether that's 500,000 or 5 million, they have to depopulate the whole house because of how deadly it is. So it can devastate the food chain in our economy. There's already been, just in this year alone, since it was first detected in South Carolina in January, there's been 50 million birds affected and over 600 domestic flocks. Also, that includes backyard flocks. So that doesn't even begin to count the effect it's had on the wild bird population, whether that's waterfowl, which is often carried and spread through asymptomatically, which is ducks and geese, or even into, it's been a lot of vultures and eagles that have succumbed to HPAI. So this is kind of a three-front thing that has taken a lot of effect on everything. And I'll be sure to put these links in the chat box when I'm done. This is where I'm getting all my information. USDA APHIS, Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, has done a very good job nationally monitoring and actually keeping their website up to date. So that's where I get the national information. And then CDFA actually has their own AI webpage for California detections. With that, this is a screenshot of my desktop of when I'm working on the map. I started this 6 or 7 months ago, and I've been keeping it up to date weekly. So I'll usually pull up APHIS every week, backtrack 10 days, and I'll pick out the counties that haven't been put on the map yet. And I'm able to do this mainly because of ArcGIS Online. Being affiliated with UC, we actually have free reign to go in there and get public layers off, and I was able to download that layer. If you see on the bottom left hand corner of the screen in the content section, the USA counties generalized layer, that I pulled right off of ArcGIS Online. And through that attribute table and making selections by attributes and county names, I'm able to use a very large selection. As you can see, there are numerous counties on this map. I can actually go through and select and then generate a layer. And that's what I did for the wild bird, backyard bird, and commercial bird, which are those bottom three check mark boxes that are visual on the map. So all of those were the original layers that I was able to visualize the affected counties on. Now, every week I'll go in, use the same process through the attributes and select the new counties. And then after I generate another new layer, I'm able to use the union tool in the analysis tab and actually combine those layers to make it look very clean into one clean layer. So those three layers are straightforward. Going up the list into the domestic layer, which is bright red, I actually use the intersect tool between commercial and backyard birds. So that basically means that anywhere that those two layers overlap, which would be any backyard bird HPI detection or commercial detection, that's now symbolized in a bright red. The top layer, wild bird and poultry, is actually a little more complex. First, I had to unionize the commercial and backyard layers and then turn that into that all poultry layer that's unchecked at the bottom. I don't want that visualized because I'm strictly using it as a tool to then again run another intersect with wild birds. So those maroon colored counties are all counties that have had a wild bird detection as well as a domestic bird detection. And you can see in the Midwest and in the West Coast and the East Coast. So California and a little bit north in Oregon and a lot of Pennsylvania, Delaware farms, and then all the Dakotas, Michigan, Washington, or Wisconsin. Those are kind of the epicenters of not only the virus, but also our commercial poultry in the US. So it has been a very nasty outbreak, especially when compared to the 2014-15 outbreak that I'm sure we were all around for, but it wasn't publicized near as much as this one. This one's been much, much worse. So that is what the final product looks like. And I've been sending this out to commercial poultry vets across the country through various listservs and putting it up on our webpage as well. I see Myrna's in here. She's the one that's been keeping the webpage up to date. So thank her on that. And then this one as well is actually more relevant to us. It is the California map that I've also put most recent detection dates on. So you can go through and see there's 37 counties in California that have had a HPAI detection, all since about July, actually. It's been very quick spreading through California. And if you look at Southern California, that is where the newer detections are because the wild waterfowl are actually migrating through the state, getting farther south for the winter for warmer climates. So it's in California as well. We have a lot of commercial poultry and we have a lot of backyard poultry too. And it's hitting very hard through the whole nation. So we want to be able to visualize this and monitor this and stay on top of it as much as we can, even though it's a virus, so we can't control it. So that's what I have. Went a little over time, so I'm sorry. I will take any questions at the end.
Thank you, Brock. very interesting conundrum, I guess, having to track it and figure out what's going on, especially in relation to backyard animals too, that may not be able to be regulated as much. Next on deck, Joseph Kursky, Esri, teaching about geoethics. Welcome.
Thank you, folks. Greetings and salutations. Happy to be with you all. Happy GIS Day. A momentous time for us to be together. But for this community, every day is GIS Day, right, folks? Well, teaching ethics and spatial thinking with spatial thinking and GIS is my topic for the next few moments. And I would like to just share ever so briefly my own background in this area. I've been in federal agencies, academia, private industry here at Esri on the education team supporting schools, libraries, museums, higher education, all things education, and also in nonprofits. So I've long had an interest in teaching and learning with geospatial technologies and geography. And that said, first of all, why do ethics matter in teaching and learning with GIS or any other subject for that matter? Well, first of all, we've got a lot of tools at our fingertips. We've got ArcGIS Online, as my colleague in the prior session just mentioned. You've got a lot of power at your fingertips. You've got a lot of data at your fingertips with the Living Atlas of the World and ArcGIS Online and other data portals. With great capability comes great responsibility. Everyone is now a map producer, right? Anybody can put content up in ArcGIS Online and other data platforms. It's not just the USGSs of the world and the Rand McNally's. Everybody is a map producer. And therefore, it has huge implications for how we should think about mapping, how we should map, how we should think about our audience, and so on. And also maps still have this sort of aura of authenticity. They look authoritative, even though anybody can create mapped content. So I say take that responsibility seriously and do not intentionally or unintentionally mislead your audience. Maps are representations of reality. They're not reality. They're very useful representations that we all love. But again, I'm focused on having people be thoughtful about the data sources, the way they classify, the way they symbolize, the map projections that they use, et cetera. This is a key time to teach this. There's a rise in geo-awareness and rise of geotechnologies on the web. There's new codes of ethics and map makers mantras. For example, my colleagues here at Esri wrote this map maker mantra a couple months ago. Be transparent, be honest, be humble. I've got all this in my presentation here that I'm going to share in the chat box here in a moment. Also, there's initiatives. The American Geographical Society's ethical geo column, which I have a column in and others do as well. Esri's social science inclusion efforts, and also the AAG Esri Geoethics Summit that recently happened at UC Santa Barbara. How can I effectively teach and learn ethics through GIS? I'm not going to go through all these, but you can do it in GIS and non-GIS courses. And also, I just submit to you all that ethics is too important to relegate to, okay, we're going to talk about that class in week 15. No. We've got to teach it and sprinkle it throughout our courses for all these reasons that I described. It's just too important. For example, location privacy. How many apps on your phone are tracking your location right now? And does it matter? And do you have a fitness app? Do you share your fitness walks, runs, or cycle rides? Does that matter? Who should you share your mapped content with? Do you have any sensitive data in there? I work with tribal colleges. I work with the caves people. I work with health-related people. So there are certain compelling reasons not to share and certain compelling reasons to share. I like to think about the think method. Is the map true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, kind? I also show a lot of bad maps in my courses. Perhaps some of you do as well, where you've got a map that looks good, but the legend is way off, or the map is just plain wrong in terms of this is continental drift on a massive proportion, right? Argentina has migrated up to Colombia. There are Internet of Things feeds that are plain wrong. So be critical of the data. Think about the 4 C's of data quality. Also think about imagery in a careful way. Sometimes imagery is offset. Sometimes things are removed from imagery. Data could also be intentionally faked. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often, but I have a couple of essays about that as well. Also, we have tools. For example, at Esri, we've got tools where you can make it snow. This is in Redlands, California. It never looks like that. In the surrounding mountains, to be sure. And there are compelling reasons to use these weather tools inside your GIS, but it never actually looks like that. Another important, I think, part of this discussion is be critical of your own data. So when you're mapping things that you've collected, be critical of that as well and understand the data quality and ethical considerations there. One way to teach about this is through a series of very compelling case studies from my colleague David DiBiase at Penn State, who actually used to be on our education team here at Esri. Some of you may know him. There's also a new 8-part video series, including Repo Man. Repo Man has cameras on the front of his car. And the interview with him is, hey, people are buying your data on license plates. Do you have a problem with that? So I asked the students, okay, if you were Repo Man, repossessed vehicle tracking, possible stolen vehicles, would you have a problem in having such a job? Should those license plates be blurred, like some faces are blurred in like Google Street View, et cetera? I also have students look at GigaPan images. Are those faces blurred? And if so, does it matter? Or if not, does it matter? And also thinking about story maps and other tools that we all have at our fingertips. Can I use that picture? Is it copyrighted? Do I need to ask permission? All those sorts of things are very compelling and very important discussions to have. And also potential harm from geotagged photos in natural places that we want to protect. What about the implications there as well? All of these are, I think, ways that you can concretely teach and learn about these tools. Also, that's not just me saying this. There's the GIS Certification Institute's Code of Ethics. There are the things that I mentioned earlier, the Ethical Geo series from the AGS. My essays on the Spatial Reserves data blog. I write about these issues bi-weekly. How to find data, how do I know if it's any good, and the ethical and societal implications of these powerful, but again, needs to be used very thoughtfully, tools at our fingertips. Also, there's a UC GIS&T body of knowledge that some of you may be aware of, peer-reviewed, rigorous, wonderful chapters from a wide variety of authors all over the world. I've got a location privacy chapter in that UC GIS body of knowledge that you can see if you go to this story map of mine. And finally, there is an AAG paper out. I mentioned the UC Santa Barbara Geoethics Summit. The group that was there, we don't want to be perceived as the ethical body, right? We want people to have input to this paper and these resources that we have in there saying, hey, you forgot this, or you need to expand this, or here's something else. So we want that to be for public discussion, and it's out right now for public discussion. So with that, I appreciate your attention, and I'd love to hear from you in the future about, hey, Joseph, that sounded really interesting. How would I incorporate this into my course that I'm teaching or my research that I'm doing? Thank you.
A lot to think about, really. And I'm glad that you're actively communicating that to audiences and making your resources available. Also wanted to clarify that the UC GIS body of knowledge, the UC GIS is an organization, the University Consortia of GIS, which is a nationwide organization, not to be confused with University of California GIS, which is us. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Good point,
but,
yes.
But it's a wonderful organization, and they work hard to develop, again, the body of knowledge is something that I also recommend looking into. So thank you so much for joining us today. So next on deck, we have Kate Chirikova. Trying to find you in, there you are.
Hi
Now
everyone, sharing my screen. Oops. Okay, can you see it in a presenter view, right?
Looks perfect.
Great, thanks. All right, so my name is Kate Chirikova. I'm a PhD student in epidemiology at the University of California, San Francisco. And today I'm going to talk about my team's project on special accessibility of gynecologic oncologists to ovarian cancer patients. So a few notes on the background. There are observed racial and ethnic disparities in ovarian cancer survival that actually persist even after adjusting for the known predictors of survival. And we know that characteristics of a place where a person lives can influence their health outcomes. And following this framework, we hypothesize that poor special access to gynecologic oncologists can lead to delays in treatment, which can in turn lead to poor survival. So this project is a part of a large NCI-funded study on racial and ethnic disparities in ovarian cancer. And the objective of this particular project was to examine the association between special accessibility of gynecologic oncologists and time to ovarian cancer treatment. The study population includes about 5,000 women diagnosed with ovarian cancer at Kaiser, and the data is coming from primarily Kaiser and also from California Neighborhoods Data System. So how do we define special accessibility? This is the measure that we created based on the two-step floating catchment area method using the ArcGIS Pro and RStudio software. The input data were locations of the infusion centers where Kaiser gynecologic oncologists work and locations of the ovarian cancer patients in our cohort. And the cost metric that we used was time required to travel to the infusion center. So more details about how the measure is actually constructed. So first step is to calculate the weighted physician to population ratio. And here on the right on the screen, you can see a hypothetical geographical area where we can see census tracts and the dots indicating the census tract centroids weighted on the locations of our patients. Then A and B here are physician locations. And the first thing would be to define the catchment area for physician locations. Here it would be 30-minute driving distance. Then we search all population locations within the area and compute physician to population ratio. The next step is actually to derive the measure. For each population location, we search all physician locations within the defined catchment zone, again, 30 minutes driving zone here, and we sum up physician to population ratios. And as a result, we get a standardized special accessibility index for each population location centroid. So here's the map of our results, the map based on the quantiles of the index that we calculated for our cohort. Yellow areas indicate low accessibility and dark blue indicate high accessibility. So we can see that the special accessibility is quite varying in this region. And this is how special accessibility that we calculated differs by race and ethnicity and neighborhood socioeconomic status in our cohort. For example, non-Hispanic Black women were primarily concentrated in areas with medium accessibility, with 12% in the lowest and 15% in the highest quantiles. And for example, non-Hispanic white women were almost equally distributed across 5 quantiles of accessibility. As for the neighborhood socioeconomic status, we can see that there's actually inverse association between special accessibility and neighborhood socioeconomic status, so that those living in areas with highest SES actually have lower special accessibility to gynecologic oncologists. So after we created and characterized our main exposure of interest, we are currently moving on to the analysis of the association between special accessibility of gynecologic oncologists and time to ovarian cancer treatment. And this analysis is currently underway. So thank you to my team and especially to my colleague Pushkar, who worked in ArcGIS and R to create this measure. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much. So we have 2 more presentations, and then we should have about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. And I know, again, these presentations really vary. So if you want to chat and reach out to the presenter directly, I think that's fine. I don't think we have any limitations on that. And if we do, we can open up questions to the audience too. So thank you so much. Thank you again. Our next presenter is actually, do we have, oh, we have 3. Sorry, I thought we had 2. We have 3. We'll still have 10 minutes left on the plate. Liz Wilson, cultural tightness predicts regional implicit bias.
Oops, that's my email. All righty. Does that look okay?
Looks good.
All right, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Wilson. I am a student at UCR, and I've recently tried my hand at spatial research and psychology. So I'm really pleased to talk to you about cultural tightness and how it predicts regional implicit bias. All right, let me first start off by introducing the construct of cultural tightness and looseness, sometimes referred to as cultural TL. Cultural TL refers to the strength of social norms, so how clear and pervasive norms are, as well as tolerance of deviant behavior. Every place has a social norm, and sometimes those social norms are very strongly defined, and there's a very narrow range of permissible behaviors that you can perform. Cultural psychologists have found a great deal of regional variation in cultural TL, with countries like South Korea, Japan, and Singapore being relatively tight, and regions like Brazil, France, and the United States being relatively loose. Variation in cultural tightness has also been found at smaller units of analysis, such as the state level of the United States. In a study carried out by Harrington and Gelfand, they identified and mapped the cultural tightness of the United States. And in this map, the darker blue values reflect higher cultural tightness, with many of the most culturally tight states clustering in the South. So in other words, the southern states tend to be culturally tight compared to the West Coast and the New England areas, which have looser social norms that permit a wider range of permissible behaviors. With tighter states having less tolerance for deviance and those who exist outside of the dominant groups, ideas, values, norms, etc. It was hypothesized that cultural tightness would be linked to rates of discrimination against minoritized groups. And indeed, researchers found support for that. In tighter states, there is higher employment discrimination, lower women's representation in office, lower percentage of women and minority-owned firms, greater opposition to marrying a non-white or Jewish person, and less support for gay marriage. While this past work links cultural tightness to a variety of these sort of economic and political inequality outcomes, it does not directly link cultural tightness to psychological processes that operate within people's minds. And this current project explores that by investigating the relationship between state-level cultural tightness and state-level biased racial associations. In order to look at this question, we first started off by drawing from cultural tightness scores that were taken from that Harrington and Gelfand study. So those are the same scores that were mapped out in the previous slide. And these cultural tightness looseness scores reflect a composite of 9 archival indicators related to the strength of punishment and norm permissiveness. So, construct relevant variables. And to look at racial bias, we drew from a measure called the Race Implicit Association Test, or RACE IAT, which is a measure that indirectly evaluates respondents' racial bias and evaluates bias that tends to operate more outside of conscious awareness and control. We drew from a data set called Project Implicit that contains millions of responses from people all over the United States who have taken a RACE IAT between the years 2002 and 2010. When retaining all of the data of those who provide state-level geolocation data, we are left with over 900,000 responses to the RACE IAT. We then aggregated those RACE IAT scores to the mean state level, giving us a racial bias score for every single state, with higher scores reflecting greater anti-Black, pro-white bias of the state. Data that's geographical in nature often displays spatial autocorrelation. So the outcome and predictor variables both tend to be clustered geographically, which can drive spurious correlations and inflate type 1 error when you're trying to use like traditional OLS regression models or using that sort of approach. So in order to look at this relationship between variables of interest, that accounts for spatial autocorrelation, we used a spatial lag model, which treats spatial autocorrelation as meaningful information with neighboring states affecting each other. Within the spatial lag model, we predicted cultural TL scores from RACE IAT scores. And here is the output from that regression model, from that spatial lag model. And we do see a significant, albeit small, effect of cultural tightness on predicting RACE IAT scores, so predicting implicit racial bias. The main takeaway here is that cultural tightness has a direct relationship with implicit racial bias in that state, as well as an indirect relationship with implicit racial bias in neighboring states. In the next steps of this project, we're really interested in potential covariates that could be incorporated into this model. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much. And again, great presentation. And again, hold it. Keep questions in your brain. Either type them in chat or make sure we have time at the end. Our two more presenters next. We have, excuse me, Nigel Robertson, Breaking the School to Prison Pipeline.
Hello, everyone. I was wondering if that was the presentation that I had shared with you all. However, and I sent it in the chat. However, instead of presenting that one, I'll be presenting another one. That was actually done on the GIS website too. But like I said, I wasn't aware that that's what I had submitted in the beginning. I do a lot of research. That's not prominent. So I will be discussing a continuation of my project from Breaking the School to Prison Pipeline. So yes, hello, everyone. My name is Nigel Robertson. Again, like I said, the Breaking the School to Prison Pipeline link is in the chat. Like I said, I didn't know that that's the one that I had submitted. My apologies, but this will be a continuation from that. So hello, my name is Nigel Robertson. I'm an undergraduate researcher, abolitionist, and anti-prison activist. I go to University of California, Merced. I am a third-year psychology major with a minor in community research and service. And I have started my research career in our undergraduate research opportunity center program called UROC. Students are able to do and conduct research on campus here at Merced during the summer months. And as they continue to go up in their research, they have opportunities to go on other campuses and do the same. So my hopes is to go to Irvine and get my master's in criminology, law, and society. So hopefully this summer I'll be able to go on campus and conduct research there. So fingers crossed. What I will be presenting to you all today is what I had conducted this last summer, which is breaking chains and releasing bars. All of my research is inspired by Angela Davis, as she is someone that I would love to mentor me. And I actually have the opportunity to be in contact with her because my research advisor and her are actually really great friends. So as I get a little bit more research and knowledge under my belt, I would hopefully love to be able to have her as my mentor. So fingers crossed that that can happen. So what I decided to come up with as far as researching the different aspects of prison abolition is how can the implementation of an amending organization consisting of preferred career camps, drug and interpersonal rehabilitation centers, and documentation of restorative justice laws and not criminal justice laws, and replacement of the prison penitentiary institution effectively serve the reentry process of incarcerated individuals. So yes, that is a lot. But like I said, this presentation was the build upon from Breaking the School to Prison Pipeline. So as I said before, I am an anti-prison activist. I do not believe in the prison institution. It's something that I actually would like to see. Is my screen still showing? It says that it was paused.
It is, but we don't see it progressing. We still see your intro slide.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay. How about now?
Yes, we see the breaking chains and releasing bars.
Yes, so I just read that question. Probably you guys were like, where did you get that question from? Yes, I read it from the slide. Thank you for letting me know. So that's the question. And I have a picture of Angela Davis and then my title. So yes, I do not believe in the prison institution. Instead, I would like to have what I've come up with myself is an amending organization. And that will stand for establishing of reformative practices for law offenders. So not the prison institution, but instead an amending organization. And it will consist of these three things here. So as I discussed preferred career camps, this will provide offenders with a range of career exploration resources to reform their mindset and ability and work ethics. It'll also have drug and interpersonal rehabilitation centers, which will examine and sustain holistic reformative actions aside from substance abuses. And also it will have a restorative justice laws and not criminal justice law practice, which would dissect the background of crime and disregard the proclaimed sentence. So this is what I see to be in place where people who have experience or have done law offending to come to and be able to rehabilitate holistically their current stance. And like I said, I would like to call it an amending organization and not a prison institution. So I have my presentation cut short because of the time limit that I have, but in my conclusion, I just discussed how mass incarceration, especially within the Black community, is a huge thing and is continuing to progress. And the reformative practices that are currently put in place are not meant to actually reform the individual, but to dehumanize the individual. And it's meant to be systematic as far as generational. And it's not something that we are not in a way having the ability to discontinue, but because it's so embedded in history, it's hard to break down those barriers, and it's hard to create different ways in which we can go around to actually have systematic change. So that's somewhat of what I discussed in my conclusion. But this research is going to be continued. Like I said, I have the opportunity to get mentored by Angela Davis, including with my my current research advisors. So this is going to be continued research. I also, like I said, when I want to go and continue my master's, I want to expand out this project to actually being something that I can do within the work and physically get to, like I said, again, breaking down these systematic barriers. So I'm not sure how my time is. I may be talking a little bit too fast, but I don't want to go over. So the last slide that I have for you all is my information. There is my LinkedIn, my email, and like I said, again, my future endeavors. I want to actually publish this presentation that I have for you in a form of a paper. So that way I can set myself aside from my graduating class when we all go apply for our master's. So that way I can kind of pop out like, hey, yeah, like I'm here to actually do the work. Like I said before, I want to receive my master's in criminology, law, and society, our criminal intelligence at Irvine. And I want to work for the FBI and the criminal intelligence section, are primarily behavioral analysis, just to work to discontinue those issues in the minority community. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. And I think you're on the right path talking to us and getting some great research. So when manifest that when you're at Irvine for your master's, that you'll continue your great work. So thank you. Lastly, we have Dr. Kalavani, GIS in dental public health.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, the host has disabled participant screen sharing. I'm not able to share my screen, ma'am, because it is telling like host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Give me just one moment. I'm looking for your participant. Sorry, what's the name to look up?
Sir, Kalavani.
Aaron, sorry, what's the name that I'm supposed to add?
Kalavani, Kalavani.
Okay.
Kalavani on top, yeah.
I think maybe it got reset once you rejoined. All right, can you try that again? Are you able to share your screen now? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're able to see your screen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So happy day, everyone. I'm Dr. Kalavani from India, and I'm a public health dentist, and I would like to share my views about GIS and its use in dental public health. So we have already known that maps and spatial analysis have a long history in the field of health and human services, and oral health is an integral part of general health. And oral health promotion, it includes understanding various health determinants like socio-demographic, economic, political, and environmental factors. But only a few oral healthcare professionals are educated sufficiently in the areas of geography like understanding how health, population distribution, the culture, social organization, and how other techniques which geographicals use in spatial analysis impact the oral health. So from this diagram, we can see that the individual level influences like demographic attributes, genetics, and use of dental care, and family level influences like socioeconomic status, social support, family function, culture, health behaviors, and the community level influences like social environment, the healthcare system, and the characteristics. Everything play a role in oral health, and they all have equal relationship with the time and environment. But the social and physical environment understanding with the oral health promotion is very low. And so I want to emphasize that the environment or the space in which we live plays a role in oral health promotion, and we should utilize this environment or the geography around us for oral health promotion. So I would like to tell that there are certain implications like geospatial information models. They help in dynamic analysis of requirements and rapid shortlisting of potential sites for improvement of oral health. And this could help in evidence-based policy making. And it is also vital to assess and treat the oral health problems. And also oral health can be integrated into general health by mapping the preventable non-communicable diseases like tobacco-related conditions and diseases, because oral cancer has a direct link with tobacco use, and understanding the tobacco use in the particular geographical area will help to prevent that particular disease. And the other spatial heterogeneity of GIS also helps in surveillance of diseases, risk analysis, and spatial and temporal trends of oral diseases, mapping the at-risk population and providing them with adequate oral health services, and assessing the resource allocation. And if there is resource allocation is disparity, then we can allocate resources to areas with the greatest social deprivation, and planning, monitoring, and evaluating oral health services, dental workforce numbers and utilization rates, spatial patterning of dental services, and the effects of intervention and contextual level influences on oral health, and also access to oral health services, and predicting the demand and supply, and planning and targeting interventions at community level. And it also used for registry for dental diseases, mapping the dental disease prevalence, and also to assess the groundwater fluoride levels. So the previous studies have also utilized GIS methods like concentric circles, Voronoi polygons, and thematic mapping, mainly to understand the dentist-patient ratios and the availability and accessibility of dental services. And also regression modeling analysis and geospatial analysis are used to further predict the demand. And a local indicator of spatial autocorrelation has also been used to understand the dentist population ratio. And regression analysis, everything can be used to predict dental services, as well as the prevailing dental services can also be used through GIS. Hence, I want to summarize that GIS can be used for oral health promotion because it helps in analysis, and also to build new applications or websites, and also to visualize using cartography, and to create a database. And this is my summary. Implications of GIS in dental public health. And the strengths of using GIS is there will be better availability of geographical health data, and the data collection will be more efficient, and also environmental risks will be assessed, and there will be less error, and we can predict the future healthcare needs. But the limitations are that it is highly dependent on the amount and quality of data, and also there is wide variation of GIS software applications, and the cost of software, hardware, as well as training dental personnel is limited. Hence, to conclude, we can tell that the scope of GIS approaches in dental public health practice and research offers an opportunity to awaken our interest in the role of context on oral health, and particularly in relation to creating supportive environments. And also, the strategic opportunities should be maximized for the mutual benefit of the researchers, practitioners, decision makers, and also the communities. So GIS could also be used in association with new focus areas like big data, space-time representation, and the knowledge of the underlying mechanisms and the differences in mechanisms between places can add to our theoretical knowledge of the role of geography in dental public health, and allow for a more considered approach to population level oral health in different locations. These are my references, and I thank the organizing team for providing me this opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kala Ivani. Sorry. Wonderful. So we have 10 minutes, a little less than that, for any questions. I'm trying to look anything in the chat. I know these were excellent. They were all just excellent lightning talks, and again, so diverse and so interesting, and pushing the limits and the boundaries, no pun intended, of what GIS is able to do, and how we're able to use GIS to analyze and research all sorts of different sorts of issues. Yeah, it's been great. So I'm looking for any questions in the chat. There's all the links of the different story maps, the different presentations are there. We have our Slack channel space, which if you have any questions for that, you can, if you're on Slack and you're connected to that, we can continue the conversation there, or you can reach out directly to the presenters if you have any specific questions, if this is an area that you're interested in learning more about, or you want to expand the conversation. Does anyone want to unmute and have any questions for any of our panel here? I know my brain's full too. I get it. There's a lot of great stuff. So, and so much to digest. We'll probably be 2 in the morning, like, oh, I have this great question. Well, if we're ready to wrap up and take a deep breath, then we can exit the Zoom. You're free to exit if you like, or again, continue the conversation. But excellent work to celebrate GIS Day. A heartfelt thank you to all our presenters. I can name them, but we'd go into 4 o'clock if I went through everybody's names. But their information is on our agenda online. Also, there's Slack, there's other ways to reach out. So before you move on to the next thing today, make sure to take note of these things. And I know this is going to inspire my work moving forward, and I hope it does yours. So take care.